NZXT are revamping their current keyboard offering with the release of the Function 2. Jack reviewed the original back in 2022 and gave them our Worth Considering award over on our website. NZXT claim that these models are a significant leap in gaming performance and build quality. At least that's what it said in the reviewer's guide that was sent over. Let's see how true that is, shall we? Hi guys, I'm Matt and welcome to Kit Guru. Now, the Function 2 is available in two sizes and I've got both here for review. The black one on the desk in front of me is the full size model, and then this white one is what NZXT call a MiniTKL. It's sort of a squashed 75% layout. They've dropped the standard TKL size that was available in their first generation keyboard. And just like that original generation Function, the Function 2 is available in black or white. But this time around, the white version has white keycaps to match it, as opposed to the black ones found on the white model Function 1 keyboard. The keycaps on the new models have been upgraded to double shot PBT from ABS. The switches have also been changed. On the spec sheet, it says they're NZXT Swift opticals instead of the Gateron Reds that were in the OG board, but not is all what it seems. Stick around till later in the video when I look at the switches in more detail and I'll tell you what they actually are. The change to optical switches facilitates the inclusion of adjustable actuation on both sizes of the Function 2. The new boards are also capable of polling at up to 8000 Hz. They've got two layers of sound dampening material as opposed to the single layer in the old model. And finally, they come with tape pre-installed on the back of the PCB. Something which we're beginning to see more often now. I first saw this in an off-the-shelf board when I reviewed the Razer Black Widow V4 75% roughly a month ago. The launch price for these new keyboards has seen a bit of an increase too. The full-sized model will set you back $139.99, and then the MiniTKL version costs $129.99. That's pounds, so the conversion to dollars and euros will be roughly that. I was a little shocked by the difference in prices when I first saw them. Not that they're expensive, that's not what I'm saying, but I just thought there would be a bit more of a gap between the full-sized one and the MiniTKL one. There is a lot more material in the full-size one, and there's only a tenner difference in the price. Just seems a bit weird. In terms of looks, not much has changed on the Function 2, which is by no means a bad thing. NZXT have stuck to their minimalistic design choices and branding, which I really like. NZXT products fit well together and they've got a very distinctive look. You could pretty much pick out an NZXT product, be that a case, a keyboard, whatever. You could pick it out on looks alone. The flat aluminium backplates and almost frameless design of the Function 2 keyboards lead to a very pronounced look to the keycaps, which in turn allows the RGB lighting to spread around nicely. Both models have a rubber volume wheel in the upper left corner, just above buttons for muting and unmuting audio, turning the Windows key lock on and off, and adjusting the brightness of the backlighting on the fly. Moving around the board, the top edge contains the USB port for connecting the included 2-meter braided USB-C cable, and some NZXT branding on the MiniTKL version only. The right edge is completely plain. The right-hand side of the top is obviously where the difference in layout becomes apparent. The full-size model stretches out further, obviously, to provide room for the numpad. Just above that numpad are indicator lights for caps lock, num lock and scroll lock, alongside an NZXT logo. Just like the new Lift 2 mice, the branding is colour matched to the body, and it's quite subtle. And also, just like the branding on the Lift 2, I quite like it. If you want to see a review of the new NZXT Lift 2 mice, then we'll leave a link in the description below. Another thing unique to the full-size model of the Function 2 is the inclusion of a wrist rest. It's a rigid rest that is coated with some soft-touch rubbery material. It feels softer than it looks, and I'd love to have seen a smaller version included with the MiniTKL model of the Function 2 keyboard. The lighting on both models is good. Just as Jack found in his review of the original Function, it's definitely more noticeable on the white model. There are a few options to choose from in CAM in regards to lighting, the software that's used to configure the function keyboards. You can choose a base lighting layer and then add a reactive layer over the top of it. There's enough in there to find something you like, and you can set up lighting on a per key basis if you want to. The bottom cases of both the full size and the MiniTKL models are plastic, whereas the top cases are aluminium. The cases lay flat on the desk when the feet are folded away, but they do offer two different levels of typing angle by folding out those feet. And just like nearly every keyboard I look at, I find the steepest incline to be the most comfortable. It just suits me the best. There's also 5 rubber feet on the bottom of both models that hold the keyboard in place really well. These things don't move when they're on a desk unless you want them to move and intentionally move them. One negative point I have to mention is the positioning of the 3 extra buttons on the left. When you pick the board up to move it, which you're going to grab it from the left and the right, it's very easy to accidentally press them. I think NZXT should have moved them to the top edge to get around this issue. It was something that Jack noticed on the first gen boards, and the issue has persisted over with these newer models. But that being said, overall, I quite like the design of the Function 2 boards. As I mentioned earlier, they're very on brand for an NZXT product. Matte colours and clean matte branding are the key themes, and they fit in really well with any other NZXT products. They've got their brand game dialed in. If you're looking for a new chair, then you should definitely check out Booley's. I'm currently sat on their Ninja Pro gaming chair, which is one of 3 models from their gaming series alongside the Elite and the Master. So if you're looking for something new to stick in your setup that you can sit on and game and work, then I recommend definitely checking out boolies.co.uk. Now, moving on to talk about build quality, and the Lift 2 keyboards might look the part, but the build and the quality of them overall really disappointed me. Taking the MiniTKL board apart with the included switch puller that comes in the box really didn't do the paint job any good at all. It left a lot of small scratches above and below the switch housings, absolutely ruining the finish. The top case bent while I was taking the board apart. There are 2 screws hidden away underneath one of the rubber feet on the bottom of the keyboard, which I didn't notice until after I'd tried taking the top case off, after removing all the keycaps, all the switches, and all the visible screws on the top. I wasn't exactly heavy-handed with it, but I didn't notice those screws, tried to open it, and the aluminium top case or top frame, whatever you want to call it, just bent ridiculously easily. The foam in the bottom of the case is very, very cheap and very thin. It's kind of like they added it in there in the cheapest way possible, just so they could stick it on the spec sheet. And just as was noticed by Hippiotech in his review of the first generation function boards, NZXT have glued the wire that connects these additional side buttons to the board. That's absolutely ridiculous. You've added features to the board, like more foam to add to the sound dampening, and then you've restricted people from opening the board up to repair it or mod it if they want to. I just can't get my head around it. It's crazy. What's more, when taking the board apart, everything just feels like it was going to break. The whole thing just feels really brittle. This is not cool, NZXT. The gluing of the cable especially, that sort of stuff, just stop. Every brand, stop doing that. Let people take stuff apart and let people tinker with things, especially if you're aiming it towards enthusiast sort of level users like this board clearly is. So after that disaster, let's talk about the switches, stabilisers, keycaps, internals, and how they all combine and how these boards sound. The Function 2 keyboards contain NZXT's Swift optical switches, or at least that's what the spec sheet that I was sent say that they contain. Opening the board up reveals that they're actually made by Gateron, or Gateron, however you want to say it. That's not a bad thing. Brands very often OEM or white label different parts to other companies that have expertise in a certain area. But these aren't the NZXT switches that the specification of the keyboard says that they are. They're obviously branded Gateron, not NZXT. Those Gateron switches do come factory lubed though, and they feel alright. They're relatively smooth, and I haven't had any issues with them while testing the board. There are a few other switches with varying actuation forces in the box, 4 reds and 4 yellows, so you could change out like the WASD keys or the arrow keys or whatever you want to. The stabilisers are plate mounted, and they're also factory lubed with an absolutely tiny amount of lube. There's so little on there, they may as well not have bothered. And the keycaps, let's talk about them. They're not great either. They are double shot PBT, but they're sharp and they've got quite a lot of burrs and imperfections. They just don't feel very good quality. Here's a sound test of the full-sized and MiniTKL versions of the Function 2, as well as the original full-sized function for comparison. Now, the new boards definitely sound a bit better than the original, but they're still definitely not the nicest sounding keyboard I've ever heard, and that's being generous. The spacebar still has a bit of rattle, and it's very noticeable over the other keys. So far, it's just, on looks, I was impressed. First impressions, I was impressed, but as I went through the video and went through doing my research, testing this and testing that, I'm just becoming more and more disappointed. As far as gaming and typing goes, it's been an okay experience. Nothing special, but also not too bad. I've been testing both, but I've been mainly using the MiniTKL size, and I've been able to churn out text quite quickly on it when I've needed to. The boards do have adjustable actuation, but it's quite restricted. It's nothing like on like the Wooting keyboards or other keyboards that have that kind of rapid trigger thing. It's restricted to either 1 or 1.5 millimeters of actuation. I've almost exclusively used the boards with the 1 millimeter setting, and I've not had too many accidental key presses, and they've always felt really smooth, fast and responsive. Speaking of that, these boards support up to 8,000 Hz polling rate. Any of you that have watched some of my recent mice reviews will know my thoughts on high polling rates. It's a bit of a gimmick. And that's on a mouse, let alone a keyboard. No one is going to spam inputs fast enough that they need their keyboard to be reporting inputs 8,000 times a second. And the reduction in latency is only going to matter to the absolute 1% elite level gamers out there. It's a nice to have feature that some people might want, but I think the everyday person, everyday gamer, the typical gamer, isn't really going to notice a difference. I touched on the software briefly earlier in the video, CAM, so let's have a look at it in a bit more detail. NZXT's CAM is where you're going to have to go to configure and customize the Function 2 keyboards to your liking. After clicking on Keyboard, there are 2 tabs that handle lighting and then key remapping. The lighting tab has 2 main sections, base and reactive, which allows you to set 2 different layers of lighting, which can be applied to the whole board or to individual keys by selecting those keys on the picture of the keyboard on the right hand side. Remap keys does exactly what you'd think. You can remap almost all of the keys on the Function 2 by dragging and dropping key actions from the menu over the top of the key that you want to remap. The options are limited to standard key actions, and you won't find anything clever like opening a program or a browser, for example. Media actions like play and skip track can be assigned if you want to though. Below those lighting and key remapping options, you'll find settings for adjusting the polling rate, changing the switch actuation distances, checkboxes for disabling the Windows and the function keys, changing the layout to suit your preference from UK to this, that and whatever, and then finally down at the bottom you can create and save macros. NZXT cam software is okay. I don't love it, I don't hate it, it works well enough. One thing I don't like though is how by default it has tabs for NZXT products that I don't even own, like cooling and capture card for example. Why are they even there? Luckily you can turn what you don't want to see off in the settings, but they shouldn't be there in the first place. It's just making the software more resource heavy, more bloaty. Just do it like a module system like IQ and it just works better. In conclusion then, from the outside and on initial impressions, the Function 2 keyboards look great. I like the design, I like the matte colour schemes, and I like the clean and minimal branding. What I don't like is the really, really poor build quality. The paint being damaged by the switch puller that's included by NZXT themselves in the box is really not good at all. And the wire being glued in and making it very difficult to access the keyboard internals is unforgivable. I just don't understand why a company would do this. Maybe it's because they had issues, I'm just guessing here, but maybe it is because they had issues with the connector coming out of the port it was connected to. But if that was the case, which I'm just guessing again, the right solution for that would be to use a better connector and not get the glue gun out and start blasting. It became apparent when opening the boards up that a lot of the materials used in the construction of the Function 2 are cheap, especially that base layer of foam. It didn't feel great at all. I feel that a lot of what has been added to this board over the original Function is there just to tick boxes on a spec sheet, and it hasn't been done with the user experience in mind, or at least it hasn't been properly and thoroughly tested. It just all feels a bit rushed and like it needs to go back into the testing and development stage for a bit, because as it is, I just can't bring myself to recommend anyone picking up one of these keyboards. So I just wanted to add a section in just to talk about some of the things that have gone on since I first made the original video. So when we made the original video, which is this keyboard on this side of the desk, it's disassembled at the moment, switches, keycaps, the tools, the screws, the board. So we reached out to NZXT just to let them know about some of the issues that I'd had, just as a courtesy thing really, before we published the video. And they said in an email back to us that they'd sent out a private sample as opposed to a marketing sample, and they wanted to send us out a replacement of both of the keyboards. So we said, that's okay, send it out, we'll check it out, look at it, see if it's the same as the other one, and see if anything has changed and been updated and made better in the retail version of the keyboard. So this keyboard has come from Amazon in the UK, directly from Amazon, via their salesperson to me. So I received it yesterday, and I've took it apart this morning just to check everything. And from as far as I can tell, it's exactly the same. The switches are still marked as Gateron. The board still scratches when you take it apart using the included switch puller. The white finish is all scuffed up. The board is still glued together. The cable is still glued together inside the board, so you can't fully disassemble it. The foam in the bottom of the case still feels very cheap. I can't see any differences at all. I was hoping that wouldn't be the case, and I was hoping this one would be a bit better, but unfortunately, the points that I made in the original edit and filming of the video still stand, and my opinion hasn't changed of the MiniTKL version in white. Obviously, the black version of the board won't scratch as much, and you won't notice the marks as much when you take the switches out, but I just wanted to add something in for clarity. I've got both of the boards disassembled in front of me, and there, you wouldn't be able to tell the difference. I put them out like this, and then I set up my desk for the shooting and the recording of the video, and I had to check which one had the bent frame, so I knew which one was which. That's how similar they are. They're the same board. So that's just for a bit of clarity on the issues that I found on the MiniTKL NZXT Function 2. And that's the end of the video, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. Please leave a like down below if you did. Don't forget to subscribe to Kit Guru to keep up with the latest PC gaming news and reviews. If you want to find links to our merch store, our Patreon page, our Discord server, our website, all of that stuff will be below the video. Go down there and check it out if you want to. Anyway, guys, I've been Matt. These have been the new keyboards from NZXT. They need a bit more time in the development cooker, or however you want to put it. They disappointed me quite a lot. Anyway, I'll see you in the next one. Look after yourselves. Speak to you later.